What's up, everybody? It's KB. Again, the whole podcast is presented by our awesome partners over at Wasted Wedge, and a new age of golf has arrived. And if you are looking to be the talk and envy of your group and create memories with your friends and family, look no further than the lineup of Wasted Wedge products and merchandise. These Wasted Wedges are a blast to drink shots out of on and off the course. I want you to think your traditional shot ski that people were lugging around at your college parties and all over the place, and how difficult they were to store, how difficult they were to transport. Wasted Wedge is revolutionizing it. It's now a golf club. It's a wedge. It's compactable, can go right into the side pocket of a golf bag. You have extenders, and it's all plastic cups, so there's no hot glue. There's no glass that you actually have to use. They're the best in the game, and they're revolutionizing the way you're taking shots on and off the course. They're a blast, and you need to check them out. Go to wastedwedge.com. Check out all of the products that they have to offer, from the actual Wasted Wedges themselves to apparel that they have to the extenders and everything in between, to be the talk of your party, be the talk of your golf outing. And you can find them on Instagram and Facebook at Wasted Wedge. Be sure to follow them. Make sure you're letting them know that you're coming from the Getting the Whole podcast and Underground Sports Philadelphia. That's wastedwedge.com, and find them on Instagram and Facebook at Wasted Wedge. Remember the name, wastedwedge.com.
Thanks for listening to Get in the Hole, your number one stop for all things in the world of golf. Watch and subscribe anywhere you get your favorite shows on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Google, and more. Just search Get in the Hole. Get in the Hole is the official golf pod of the Underground Sports Philadelphia family of podcasts. Now let's get right into the action. Here's your hosts, Steve McAvoy and Ben Pirro.
Philadelphia, baby, you're going to love it. Best sports fans in the world. Actually, the worst, but that's what makes them the best.
So, Ben, one of the fun parts about getting to go to England this week, granted, obviously, you and I are in the States, but for the golfers going to England, you ever watched like the videos? The Islanders do it usually, and occasionally, like the Red Sox will do it. When new players get drafted to those teams, for the Islanders, they'll have them like read off like Indian names like Hopog and Patchogue and try and like have them guess them. And the Red Sox do similar things, but like Boston accent kind of stuff. Here on the show, because originally my idea was to match up golfers to their affiliated soccer teams that they support, I've instead decided to try and stump you with pronouncing English towns.
So this is cute. See that for everybody watching, because Steven knows that I'm better at life than he is, this is what he has to do to make himself feel good. I accept your challenge, and I'm going to kick your challenge's ass. So let's get into it, my friend.
All right, we'll start with these. For those of you watching on YouTube, you can see the names of the three towns we're going to start with below. We'll go in order, and you tell me what they sound like.
Leicester, Leominster, Shrewsbury.
It's Leicester, Leominster, and Shrewsbury. Leicester should have been easy because Leicester is actually, I think all three of them actually are towns also in the Massachusetts area. Although the last one actually is called Shrewsbury in Massachusetts. It's just because the English first had Shrewsbury. For some reason, I guess the English pronunciation turned over. So that's your first three. So we're over three.
That's very interesting. I think it's so funny that you think I would know how Massachusetts towns are pronounced when I haven't lived more than a week in Massachusetts. And that was I was in a hotel. I was in a Hampton.
I mean, I've only been to Mass, I don't know, 3 times, and I know some of them. At least like Leicester, I knew because
you are just saying that. You're just saying that. You have no idea how to pronounce.
I will totally admit, actually, the first one I knew. These three, the back two, I had no idea what the fuck like they were thinking with the spelling of these things.
The first one. The second one at first glance, I thought I was like chlamydia.
That's what I thought, right?
All right. Marylebone.
This
Mandalay.
The second one, I'll say, it sounds nothing like you think it looks like.
Roof slip.
You're right. It's Marleybone. The second one is Chumley, which makes absolutely no sense to me. And the other one there is, in fact, not Rui slip, but it is right. His name is right. Rye slip. It's RY slip. So like re-slip probably makes
All right,
more.
so I'm 1 for 6, basically.
You're doing good.
Yeah.
Your final 4.
Hunstanton, Tiegenmoth, Happus Brew,
The last one literally.
Gateacre.
Yeah, like Gateacre. It's Hunston, Tinmouth, Haysborough, and Gattaker.
Did I say any of those right?
You did not.
I think you're full of shit. I think I said 2 of those right. So I went 3 for 10. I'm in the Hall of Fame.
You said you went 1 for 10.
I went.
Leicester you should have gotten because there's a soccer team called Leicester City.
I told you
they're well known.
I know nothing about soccer and I don't follow it.
Do you know who Billy Horschel supports?
Why would I know who Billy Horschel supports?
Because he has them on his golf bag.
That's great, and I don't watch golf, so how would I know who he supports?
It's West Ham United, but whatever. We're trying here, guys.
I can't wait for the day that I get to run this show, and I'm going to do something that shows how stupid you are.
If you had to guess the team Rory McIlroy supports, who would it be? It's a big team that you know.
I don't know.
Manchester United.
I was literally about to make a guess, and you just fucking cut me off.
Oh, I'm sorry. I have more if you want to keep on going with this.
Sure, go for it. I don't care.
Justin Rose, the team we talked about. It's also a city in New York. Like in Manhattan. It's like a hamlet.
Manchester.
It's Chelsea.
Oh, Jesus. Whatever.
Have you ever watched Ted Lasso?
No.
All right, so you wouldn't understand this one. Matthew Fitzpatrick supports Sheffield United, and there's a scene in Ted Lasso where they're talking about who they're playing next week, and one of the teams they're playing is Sheffield Wednesday, and he goes, "We're playing on Saturday." He goes, "Yeah," and he's confused as to why they're called Sheffield Wednesday if they're playing on Saturday. It's because Sheffield Wednesday used to only play on Wednesday, similar to like how the Cubs used to only play day games back in the day. And it's a funny scene that I highly encourage you to, first of all, watch that show. Second of all, watch the clip. There's another clip they talk about depression and losing, and they equate it to the New York Jets. And I think it's really funny. So, yeah. Hello and welcome to the Get in the Hole podcast. Steve McAvoy, Ben Pirro here. Another week on the PGA Tour. We're going over and across the pond, the 151st British Open, formerly known as the Open, and the world champion of golf will be crowned this week. The Get in the Hole podcast brought to you today and every day by our friends over at Wasted Wedge. A new era in the golf game has arrived. Wasted Wedge, bringing you the fun mixture of golfing and drinking all into one. Their golf shot skis with, of course, their patented mini cups. You throw them right in. Easy, clean, washable. They have extensions. They have everything you're looking for. Remember the name, folks. Wasted Wedge. You can find them. WastedWedge.com. Ben, welcome into the show this week. How are you?
No, it was such a nice welcome. You made me look like a bumbling idiot in front of everybody in that first segment. But I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for asking. I'm just such a good start to the week, and I get to look at this special specimen on the left side of my screen. So we'll see what stupid things he has to say tonight.
I want to let you know that every single time we do this show, first of all, I always look forward to Mondays because I get to sit down and talk to you, and we get to
you get to look
shit and have fun. Well, I was looking at your pecs before the show because you choose to call me with no shirt on eating Haagen-Dazs, which sounds more sensual than you think it is, and I was quite unnerved by it.
Okay, the picture that I just put in my mind, and I'm sure what people listening or watching put in their mind, is not what you guys are thinking. Okay?
No.
So don't get any weird ideas. I was just sitting here, and because of the angle,
it isn't like you were lathering yourself at Haagen-Dazs. Like this isn't like
or like literally like sucking on the spoon like in a section. I was literally just like eating Haagen-Dazs without a shirt on, like a normal human. Like I don't know. I think that's normal, but whatever. Like, my mom thinks I'm bizarre, so I don't know. She actually told me, she's like, you're bizarre. So
yeah. You know what? I could agree with your mother on that. I think. Everyone's bizarre in their own way.
Whatever. You said you were looking forward to this, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, no. So I look forward to Mondays, and I never mean to make you look like a babbling idiot. But I think it's fun when we get to do like dumb shit like this, and we get to have some sort of fun. Look, there's plenty of opportunities that you have to trash me every day on the show. So I think it's totally okay that I could throw a little bit back to at least begin the day. But we're gonna have.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I like a little good back and forth banter. I mean, I did get you pretty good when you texted saying that the Mets are going to the World Series last night.
That was complete and utter sarcasm, by the way.
There's no way. You are the most emotional sports fan. I think you're one of the most emotional sports fans I've ever met. You definitely were definitely in your feelings when you sent that, because they actually won a game against the Dodgers and they finally scored more than a run in their last 5 games. It was, I mean, I'm sure you wanted to do a cartwheel, like the fact that they won.
I was actually so livid at the fact that that this is the second straight game that they wasted a perfectly good start from their starter, and of course someone in the bullpen has to ruin it, and it's like clockwork. It's like death taxes and the Mets bullpen blowing things up.
It's just
anyhow.
It's so funny. It's so funny because Steven thinks that the Mets should run it backlash next year, and I just am like, why would you ever want to do that? But anyway, that aside, we're not a baseball podcast. We are a golf podcast. Let's talk about some golf. Let's get into the show.
Let's do it. So, what the highlights of this past weekend? Of course, obviously, Rory McIlroy takes home his 8th World Championship event in Scotland. But I want to start actually before that. What happened on Tuesday in the press conference room prior? Jordan Spieth and Xander Schauffele were both asked their opinion on the whole LIV PGA merger and what their current take is, and they've been relatively quiet. I think most people have. The only people who have really spoken up about things were, of course, Tiger had the memo that he tried to get wiped from court documents. They had, of course, the LIV PGA hearing, which kind of was a train wreck. There was a lot less actual solid questioning for both sides than there was anything of actual importance. But this actually really stood out to me. I want to play this quick clip, a minute 47, courtesy of ESPN and Sky Sports from the Scottish Open on Tuesday.
I don't sit on the board. I'm not on the pack either, so I'm not on the in. I think that certainly, as you've talked to a lot of other players, it's been quite a shock from the get-go, and I wouldn't say that there's enough details to be able to really comment much on any concerns, because if you asked me about something specifically, I could say I saw that somewhere and I saw it somewhere else that it wasn't part of it. So I really don't know. I'm sure, I guess Jay's returning Monday, and I'm sure as he starts to speak with you guys, maybe things have gone further, and clearly I think we would have probably liked to see him at the Senate hearing if he was able to do so, just as a representative of the tour. But I don't know if there's anything that concerns me because I just hear if you name one factor of it, I've probably heard that yes and no on either side of just about every piece of it.
You know, the guy who was supposed to be there for us wasn't. Obviously, he had some health issues. So I'm glad we got the memo. I'm glad that he said he's feeling much better. But yeah, I'd say he has a lot of tough questions to answer in his return. And yeah, I don't trust people easily. He had my trust, and he has a lot less of it now. So I don't stand alone when I say that. And yeah, he'll just have to answer a lot of really hard questions when he comes back.
So clearly, the sentiment from both Jordan Spieth and Xander Schauffele had a bit more of a paramount feeling that Jay Monahan needs to earn their trust back. I think it's fascinating that we're still at this point. We're over a month into this. We already had the Senate hearing. Jordan Spieth talking about how, and as one of the premier golfers in the game, when it first happened, obviously Rory didn't even know about it, nor did Tiger. Really, no one knew about it. No one on the board even knew.
I thought Rory knew.
Rory had been in communication with.
But it might happen.
Yeah. So he was in communication with Yasir Al-Rumayyan in prior dealings. When the actual agreement came through, it was a midnight deal that Rory didn't even really know that it had been accepted, and it had been actually like admitted out and signed upon it and agreed on. So, and when you look at it from the overall player perspective, and guys like Jordan Spieth and Xander Schauffele, completely left in the dark. These are two top 25 golfers in the world. They should be able to at least have some sort of an input here. And whether or not you agree with the fact that they're independent contractors and that they don't really have a say in these kind of things, I would argue the latter, considering they are your product, and in your case, as a professional, somebody who is a stakeholder in this because you agreed to be here, you wanted to be here, you stayed here. So why should they not have the courtesy of the PGA Tour to tell them, hey, this is what's going on? And in Jordan's words, you hear one thing and then you hear the complete opposite 30 seconds later, and social media doesn't help. What's your opinion here from Spieth and Schauffele? Do you agree? Do you think it's okay to keep them in the dark here? Where's after a month, like, are you surprised by any of this?
No, I'm not a surprise. I'm not. I just said I'm not a surprise. I am not surprised at all, because of how ill-prepared and clueless the tour has acted over the past 13 months or so. Because this really has been going on for about 13 months, seriously. Once guys started defecting to LIV, that was about 13 months ago, right after the US Open. So this isn't surprising at all. I do believe that guys should be made aware of what's going on. I understand that they're independent contractors. I have been on record saying that they're independent contractors. But at the same time, the guys that have been loyal to you, they should be given the opportunity to know what's going on. And Jay Monahan has done a really bad job overall with this whole situation. And the fact that the future of this merger looks so murky is not at all surprising. I don't know what to expect. I could see the merger going through, PGA Tour and LIV partner up, that's it. And then on the other end of the spectrum, I could literally see the opposite, where the two sides can't agree on a deal, or our Supreme Court doesn't allow it, whatever. There's literally, it's like from this end to that end, basically. I think the players should deserve to know what's going on, because right now, this could potentially impact their bank accounts significantly.
Mm-hmm.
And although the tour players, as I've said, they are independent contractors, although that's what they are still the product. They are the reason. Jay Monahan is not the reason the tour makes as much money as it does. It's Tiger, it's Rory, it's Jordan Spieth, it's Justin Thomas, it's Scotty Scheffler, it's Jon Rahm, whatever. They're the reason why everybody else's pockets now are so deep, including Jay Monahan's, including tour officials, including the higher-ups on the PGA Tour. They're the reason for this, so they should know what's going on. And it doesn't help when you have people on Twitter and other areas and other social media apps spewing complete garbage and nonsense when they don't even know what the hell is going on anyway.
Exactly.
You know, it's kind of like when, I think it was Blake Griffin. He found out on Twitter that he got traded from the Clippers to the Pistons. Can you imagine finding out on Twitter or from some random source that you got traded to another team and the team didn't even have the courtesy to call you?
Well, hey, even in a different aspect, remember when Wilmer Flores got allegedly traded?
Yeah.
Trying to
yeah.
Oh my God! The fact, in my opinion, I think this whole thing is really kind of blown out because, and as you're alluding to it, social media and the people who are trying to get information, like the PGA Tour shouldn't, or the players shouldn't have to be contacting and incessantly bothering the PGA Tour to get the information that the journalists are trying to get.
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely no. You're 100% right. And just like how these players on these teams find out from third parties that they've been traded, the players found out about the merger from Twitter.
Exactly.
That should never happen.
No,
I mean, my goodness. And you that just destroys any sort of trust that a player could have in an organization, team sport or not.
Yeah.
You know, Blake Griffin, he was pissed off the first time he went back and played the Clippers. He was pissed off, as he should. If I was a PGA Tour player, I'd be pissed off too about what's been going on. You're just going to keep me in the dark when we have no idea what's going on, and this can significantly affect my bank account and the well-being of my family and how much money I can provide for them. I would feel pretty pissed off. And it just shows the lack of leadership that we have right now in the game of golf. I mean, when Tim Fincham retired, he was the commissioner before Jay Monahan. People are like, oh, thank goodness he's gone. Oh my goodness. I mean, he can't be any worse. He couldn't have been any worse than what we're dealing with right now. He can't be any worse than what Jay Monahan's been doing for the past year and a half, essentially.
Yeah.
So that's my thought. Look, Jay needs to earn their trust back. He really does, because he has not done a good job. And look, I hope whatever health issue he's dealing with, I hope that his recovery is a success and that he's back shortly. Pushing that aside, his overall leadership, especially the past year and a half, has been significantly below average.
Yeah.
And I think that's being very, very polite. I could say much worse things about it, but I'm just going to leave it at that.
Well, I think it's
not up to the players; it's up to him.
Well, also, you want to put Jay Monahan under a microscope. I'm not going to speculate anything. If he had health issues, that's on him. Take your leave. If your health issues were not severe enough that you missed out on arguably the biggest moment of your entire commissionership, having to go in front of Congress and explain why you did what you did, and instead you throw somebody else out there who I watched the entire thing during work, answered probably 8%, 10% or less of the actual questions, because he wasn't within the pay grade to know the answer. Have somebody a little bit more qualified to answer these questions, or actually better yet, yourself, if you actually are. And again, look, if the guy suffered like a stroke, it's a different story than that. But at the very least, prep your guy and say, hey, this is what happened. This is how it's going through. Not even like this guy had no idea. I forget what his first name was, but I believe it was Price. Had no idea half the questions that are being answered. Congress granted some convoluted. And then Jimmy Dunn on the other side was only able to basically say, oh, yeah, well, we coordinated with the Saudis. Basically with the overall concept of we had no choice but to do so. The only thing I took away from the entire Senate hearing was that how is this not a monopoly now, because LIV and the PGA are going to merge, and the DP World Tour, and like, where's the competition here? The PGA Tour had quote unquote no choice but to make this deal, yet they claim they had all the leverage and they didn't need the money. Okay.
They're just lying.
Yeah, there's lying. And then on top of that, the actual communication of all of this has completely blindsided every single player on the PGA Tour, including the ones who are going to be future members of your board, future Hall of Famers, and people that very well could be running the PGA Tour in 10 to 20 years, i.e. Rory McIlroy, Tiger Woods, and probably some other guys who are featured currently in the world top 10. I think it's absolutely ludicrous. I think it's embarrassing. And I don't know what Jay Monahan's going to do, or is it what we're going to have to do to earn a guy like Xander Schauffele's trust back. But if it were me, it would be a hell of a lot, because you have a lot of questions that you're going to answer. And he allegedly returns today on a Monday here, July 17th.
So
what he's going to say in the press conference room over the next 2 days prior to the Open is beyond me, and I'm looking forward to it.
it's going to be very interesting. I when you told me that they basically had, like, for lack of a better term, they basically had like a puppet, in Jay Monahan's place when he went before Congress.
Yeah.
It was essentially a puppet.
Yeah,
And they're asking him all these questions, and he couldn't answer any of them. This is a little off topic, but it reminded me of when I got released from the men's team at Xavier, because I got released, and then I asked probably seven or eight questions, and between the new head coach at the time and the assistant AD, they answered one of them. And I sat there and I was just like, wow, we have some serious brains running this operation now. This is awesome. Hearing that about the PGA Tour situation and how they had a literal puppet who was not able to answer basically any of the questions, I have the exact same reaction. We have some serious geniuses running the show right now, and that's total sarcasm.
Yeah, it's embarrassing, honestly, and I'm A, disappointed, but B, Jay Monahan's job and his career hasn't really been looked under a microscope until this past year and a half. And
it was golf.
Exactly, it's golf. Like, you're not Rob Manfred, where every single day you're getting shit on for X, Y, and Z, because after all, you are a horrible commissioner.
Yep.
But like, when you look at it from the microscope here, the last year and a half, you had to capitalize even one iota, and you flopped. I don't know what's going to happen in the next years, because obviously the commissionership doesn't just go away like a elected official. So to figure out what the future holds is beyond me. But I'm really hoping a status change happens relatively soon, because even putting Jay Monahan in charge of what this joint PIF PGA operation is going to be, who knows how he's going to screw that one up. It's horrifying and it's scary.
It is, actually. Yeah.
With that being said, let's getting away from Jay Monahan, focusing on the actual golf that matters.
By the way, sorry not to interrupt. By the way, when I end up getting on tour, they're gonna absolutely hate me. They're gonna have it up for me.
Are you gonna be like guess it's like James Harden of the league, where like you're always getting fined for like talking out of people?
Well, I don't think anything that I'm saying or anything that I would continue to say on a public platform such as this, I feel like one would think that would be a violation of my freedom of speech. I mean, I
Yeah, but
shouldn't be allowed to
they
say.
could fine you.
What's that?
But like they could still fine you technically because you apply to their. You're an IC. You still oblige to their rules.
Well, then that's what I'll do. I'll just eat the fines, and I'll be like, well, I'll when I come on the show, then I'll show everybody the fine. This is how much I got fined today,
Yeah.
everybody. This is the tour's taking more of my money. Fire up the hate storm for that bumbling idiot Jay Monahan and Rory McIlroy. Come on.
It's like when Odell was wearing like Supreme armbands and like illegal cleats, and they're confining him. And he goes, "I don't give a shit." I think it was he wore a pair of cleats in during a game, and then he donated them to a charity, and like they had like charity that charity's like logo and everything all over them. And he was fine, and he goes, "I'm literally giving the money to charity." And so he gave him the money, and then they doubled the fine and gave it back to the charity. And he was like, "Screw you guys! Like I'm literally doing it for a good cause." It's That's ridiculous. Getting into the golf side, Rory McIlroy this week won his 8th World Championship at the Genesis Scottish Open. By the way, Genesis has a car. I saw one recently. They opened up a shop in the Roosevelt Mall, like a showroom for like a couple of cars. Beautiful looking vehicles. Good for them for having a event on both the PGA and DP World Tours, because that car looks amazing. Looks almost as good as a Tesla. No free ads. One at the Scottish Open. Again, his 8th world title. I'm going to read off everywhere that he's won a national open. He has won at Hong Kong, twice in Canada, Australia, the U.S. Open, of course, the Open, the Irish Open, and now the Scottish. Earns his 8th. I don't know if you saw his shot on 18.
I did.
That beautiful. But honestly, that 18th hole between him and Bobby McIntyre was exceptional golf. And I feel so bad for Robert McIntyre. I love his name. It's Robert McIntyre. You can call him Bobby Mac. You can call him Bobby. He likes it both. He's also a 26-year-old who looks like he's like 80. Like he looks like an old man, and I love it. I feel so bad for the kid because the opportunity to win in Scotland is huge as a native Scot. But then also, like, could you be upset with the fact that Rory McIlroy knocked down 2 of probably the best birdie putts of his career to edge you in a tournament? Despite the fact that no one could watch it because of wonky television coverage, a great final close to that event.
No, it was great. I mean, look, man, he played really well. I saw some of the highlights. I mean, he's in really good form heading into another major. We'll see what happens this week at Hoylake. But yeah, no, I mean that second shot in 18 was a thing of beauty, and everybody on here knows I am not the biggest Rory McIlroy fan, but game recognized game, and he played great in not easy conditions on not an easy golf course. He played really well. He was clutch when it mattered most. From the start of the round to the middle of the round to the end, he was great. Good for him. He played fantastic. And Bobby McIntyre, I mean, I think that was like a 3-wood out of the rough. I think it looked like a 3-wood, maybe a 5-wood. It looked more like a 3-wood though. And I think his 3-wood was better than whatever iron Rory hit in there, just because of the lie and the situation, and people don't when you think of like UK golfers, you don't think of Bobby McIntyre, right? Like you just don't. It's not to be rude, but that's just how it is. And so you could tell he fell back on his training, and he played exceptional golf. And that shot in 18, that might be one of the shots of the year. I'm not going to say it was the shot of the year, but one of the shots of the year on tour. I really do think so. People don't understand how difficult it is in windy conditions, out of the rough, to hit a 3-wood that good and that close. That's a really, really difficult shot. And he made it look like he had done it 1,000 times before he did it. And hats off to him. Great event. And yeah, congrats to Rory. That was great. So
comment on Bobby Mack, who I've been following for a little bit because I've watched, I forget what event it was, but he played really well, and I was just infatuated because, like, you also don't see many lefties on tour. Obviously, there's Phil, but like, I cannot name you a single lefty off the top of my head that isn't named Phil Mickelson. And then you look at Robbie McIntyre. What are you thinking, or are you weirded out by the fact that
you can't name another lefty other than Phil Mickelson?
Off the top of my head, no.
Bubba Watson, Mike Weir. Are you kidding me? Cody Gribble, dude. I don't even watch golf, but I know more lefties than you. Oh my god.
Bubba, I did forget about. It also helps that he defended to live, so I can watch him in a year. But regardless, there are not many lefties on tour. But I know Robert McIntyre because he is young. He's 26. He's up and coming. He's fighting his way. He is still a top. I think I'm pretty sure top 100 golfer. Might even be in the top 50. But a really talented golfer, a very good overall player, and he always shows out here in Europe. Very little pat on the back for me. Took him top 10 as a gimme. Really happy that one hit. I love this kid, and I'm really looking forward to a really solid week this upcoming week, which segues in well to my next question that I have for you. And this goes beyond just Rory McIlroy and Bob McIntyre, really anybody who played this week. How much should we be taking the performances this week in Scotland and relaying them to what we're going to see at Hoylake this week? Obviously, the Scottish conditions to England, obviously not very far apart. It's all part of the same cluster of islands. Mm-hmm. But very dry this week, and we'll talk more about it on the other side. Very wet this past week at Hoylake. It's only going to get wetter, apparently. But how much should we be taking the conditions this week, the very, very brown grass of Scotland, and take it now to this week at the Open? Should we expect similar performance from these guys, or because of course, major conditions should be a little bit different?
Look, the conditions at a major championship, the courses are always going to be harder. Generally speaking, it's going to be a different kind of golf. Unfortunately, you will see some guys' mentalities change because it's a bigger tournament. I feel that at times you'll see guys, when it's a major, they tend to treat it differently, which that's actually not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to go into it like it's a normal, like it's just the Honda Classic, or it's like the Waste Management Phoenix Open, one of those. I do believe that scores will be slightly higher because they're going to be going from fairly dry conditions, as you said, to wetter conditions, which will effectively make the course longer. Presumably the wind will still be up. Rory, look, I find, excluding the Masters, which is at the same course every year, it is very rare that you see someone win the same major twice at the same course. Mm-hmm. So essentially, it was like when, I'm trying to think. Like everybody, when the U.S. Open was played at Bethpage Black in 2009, I think pretty much, I'm sure the betting favorite was Tiger Woods, or at least he was up there for sure. Yeah. Because he was Tiger Woods, and he won it in 2002 at Bethpage. Well, he didn't win. Okay, I'm trying to think of another example. I believe Rory won the PGA Championship at Kiawah back in 2012. Does my memory serve me correct?
I believe you're right, yes.
Well, the next time it was at Kiawah, who won? It wasn't Rory, it was Phil.
Yeah.
So it's very different. You rarely see a golfer win a major championship 2 times at the same course. That just historically, It has. I'm sure it's happened, but I can't think of a time that it has happened. I can't. I don't even know if Tiger's done that, and I'm excluding. Obviously, I'm excluding the Masters. I mean, I guess maybe if you want to throw Torrey Pines in there because he won actual tour events there, and then he won the U.S. Open, just like how he won the Pebble Beach in the U.S. Open, and I believe he won the AT&T Pro-Am at one point.
Mhm.
Whatever. I'm sure he'll have a very good week. After all, he is Rory McIlroy. He's very talented. He's one of the best golfers in the world. I just think it's very rare that you see that happen, especially go 2 weeks in a row from a pretty high profile event to an even higher profile event. That's a lot of energy. I don't know. I don't think he's gonna win. I'm just gonna say now he's not my pick to win, but I do think he'll have a good week for sure. I mean, look, he's won there. You would presume he'd probably finish top 10. I think that's a fair assessment. You know, you win last week, you finish top 10 the next week. It makes sense. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I think overall, yes, we're going to see higher scores overall. I think the conditions, and again, we'll talk about this on the other side in about 2 minutes, but the fact that it was very dry this week in Scotland, you saw it in the grass pattern. It was very, obviously, the classic link-style browning kind of grass. Not going to be similar to what we saw, like, for example, last year at St. Andrews, very brown, very dry, very cold and frigid for what is late July. However, we are going to see a golf course that's going to be very similar to what we saw in 2014 when Rory did win at Hoylake. And also to answer your question, no player, with the exception of Augusta National, obviously, no golfer has multiple majors at the same golf course. So,
did you look that up?
yes, I did.
Oh, I am such a genius. You are so lucky to have me.
Yes, so happy to have you. But yeah, so I think overall conditions are going to worsen. You're going to be expecting some pretty good wind. There's a lot of different things also to this golf course that make it naturally much more difficult. Plus, they've been prepping this golf course at Hoylake for probably 5 months now, knowing that they were going to be taking on a major. So I would expect a much different scenario than what we saw at the Genesis. Believe me, Bobby Mack will not be taking a 3 or 5 wood from that rough and hitting it to 10 feet. I can almost guarantee you that much, if that makes any sort of difference. However, you might be surprised a little bit at how conditions are going to play. We're going to take a short break. On the other side, we're going to talk all things about Hoylake, give you a little bit of an inside scoop on the golf course this week, how things have changed from 2012 and 2014 and 2006 when Tiger and Rory both were victorious here at Hoylake. We'll get into the nitty-gritty right here on the Get Low podcast. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back in here on the Get the Whole podcast. Steve McAvoy and Ben Pirro on the show once again. And here we are with the 151st Open Championship. Cameron Smith handed in his claret jug the other day when he got to the course and said he had plenty of beers drank out of that one. We're going to see who can hoist the claret jug this year and have, I don't even know what drink they would put into it depending on the golfer. I feel like we're going to have to do a prop bet based around that. But it's time to get into the nitty-gritty. Royal Liverpool plays host to the Open Championship this year. It has hosted multiple Open Championships. 1897 is the first time this golf course was played on the Open stage. 1902, 07, 1913, 24, 30, 36, 47, 56, 67, and then, of course, 06 and 2014, where the victors that year were Tiger Woods and Rory McIlroy, respectively. It's also played host to multiple amateur championships, the Women's British Open, the Walker Cup in 2019 as most recent, and, of course, the Curtis Cup in 92. A gorgeous golf course, to say the least. I was watching some aerial overheads going into this segment. Just a beautiful, beautiful golf course. I love the courses in England and even Scotland and Ireland because of the fact that they of course have the link style, as we already know, but also those like certain features that make a golf course so significantly challenging. The rough is not nearly as thick as you think it is, but it's always super challenging. The pot bunkers, as you remember from last year, and many subsequent Open Championships are always a challenge. We're going to talk all about it right here. And a little bit of course confidential. Ben, as the pro in the room, I'm going to kind of rattle off what are some of the changes that we've seen, what to expect this week, and I kind of want to get your take from the pros perspective to give you an idea of the play styles and the play types that should dominate here. So start off, Royal Liverpool, as opposed to 2014, was about 71, give or take, 100 yards. They've upgraded it to 73. 83 is the official yardage this week from the tips, a par 71 featuring 3 par 5s, 4 par 3s, and 11 par 4s to round the course out. A couple of changes from the last iteration here about 9 years ago. The 17th was a par 4. They've actually moved it all the way up down to a par 3. They've loosened about 100 yards off to about 136-yard short wedge 17th par 3. The 10th hole moved from a 535-yard par 5, and they've actually shortened it ever so slightly to 507 yards, and I've downgraded it to a par 4. So those are the two major things to look out for this week. Conditions, we're expecting some pretty steady conditions the whole week. Should be a little bit of a muggy week at Hoylake, about 64 degrees is what we're looking at straight through. That morning should be seeing about low 50s actually. 52 it says on Thursday to begin the round. So we're going to be seeing a lot of guys. The morning we're going to have a lot of that dewy weather. Ball's going to be sitting up a lot. Should be relatively sunny towards the back end of the day. Overcast skies towards the back end. I feel like a meteorologist chatting about it, but a very wet Saturday and Sunday. So a lot of twists and turns to be expected. Wind roughly of about 15 miles an hour, roughly throughout the weekend. Expectation is to get up to about 20.5 miles an hour on Saturday, Sunday. So mixing the rain with the wind is going to be a challenge. A couple of key points here. Of course, the pot bunkers are paramount. Question for you. So they're talking about how it's changing from 06 to 2014. If you remember, for those of you who are old enough to recall, I was only 7 when this happened. But when Tiger Woods won in 2006, incredibly dry, super brown golf course, was basically bouncing everywhere, the golf ball. He won handily because of that, and he was hitting drives 360 yards off the tee. When Rory won, it was very green, very wet, very luscious golf course. Unlike what you typically see, we're going to be seeing very similar conditions to that. I believe it was Victor Hovland's caddy, described it as wet fairways and juicy rough. Never heard rough ever called juicy before. But there's a significant feature that's being added this year that many pros aren't used to, and I want to get your opinion on what exactly it means. So, of course, you know your typical golf course. There's the out-of-bounds stakes. They're utilizing something called internal out-of-bounds this week. And there are certain holes that feature it as opposed to others. I'm trying to find the exact meaning here. So, for example, golf.com wrote an article here. The third hole of the championship course is a dogleg right with skirts along the outside of the members' driving range, lined up by a grassy hump. Anything to the right is OB, anything left is good, and the same applies to the finishing par 5 18th, which could break left to right with certain wind. They were saying that the internal out of bound is going to be basically an added challenge where it doesn't really make sense where they're like arbitrarily marking lines in the ground for what it is. What exactly is a internal out of bound as opposed to the standard? What should we be looking for?
Okay, you went about 4 different directions right there, so I have to respond to as much of it as I can.
Yeah, slow down.
All right. Number one, you are right in saying that the conditions in 2006 when Tiger won were different from 2014 when Rory won. But you said Tiger was hitting 360-yard drives. Tiger was not hitting 360-yard drives that week. He actually left the driver in the bag that week. He had been switching. He had been working with Hank Haney. He had been having issues off the tee, which once he went to Haney, his driving accuracy dipped. It did dip, actually, from what I remember. So he was actually getting a lot of irons off the tee, and so those conditions essentially lent themselves to him not being able just to put the ball in the fairway.
Right.
And Tiger also had a bone to pick that week with Nick Faldo, who was pretty critical of some of the swing adjustments that Tiger had made. And then, of course, as the golf gods like to do, they paired them together for the first 2 rounds. And Tiger basically kicked his ass for 2 rounds. And then kicked everybody else's ass for 4 rounds. So that's the first thing. So Tiger was not hitting 360-yard drives. The driver basically was left in the bag.
You're right. You're right. My mistake is he swapped out the driver, I believe, for a 1-iron or a 2-iron. I believe what
he always carried a 2-iron even on tour. He still had the driver in the bag. He just wasn't really hitting it except on select holes.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. The second thing is, look, I think it's good that you went over the general weather of what's expected. But with the Open Championship, you have to expect the unexpected with the weather. You really don't know what's going to happen. It could be sunny and 75 or 80 degrees. And then 20 minutes later, it's 53 degrees, it's raining sideways, and it's a 30-mile-an-hour wind out of nowhere. So really, you have to take a grain of salt with the projected forecast because you really don't know what's going to happen overall, especially because the weather there is so hit or miss. This course, though, like most links courses, the most link style courses, will lend itself to having a lot of options off the tee especially. And just because the course might play a little bit softer, you will still see guys getting roll off the tee. Maybe not as much if it was super firm and super dry, but you will still see some. It still makes it a placement style golf course, which is what all of links golf is, because you have pot bunkers and you have the gorse bushes and fescue and thick rough and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So really, placement is still going to be very important. I don't really think you're going to see guys changing out clubs going to more, I guess what I'm saying is you're not going to see guys changing what clubs they're going to be using. You will still see guys using driving irons, such as a 1, 2, and 3 iron. You're not going to really see any hybrids. I just don't really see in wet and windy link style golf where a hybrid would fit. You're going to see guys having still more penetrating ball flights to keep the ball out of the wind. You just might not see as low of scores. But the good news is, because the course might not be rolling as much, is that you won't maybe see as many big numbers because guys will be getting sucked into those pot bunkers after an errant tee shot. The ball actually might stop short of the bunker, or it might not take a ridge as significantly as it would if it was your typical firm and fast link style course. Third point, internal out of bounds. What is that? So, hilariously enough, I actually DQ'd a kid for hitting a ball that was internally out of bounds. He doesn't know it yet, but he was also known as a cheater, and so I felt vindicated doing it. I was 13. How old was I? No, I was older. I was probably 15 or 16.
I love the sandbaggers. I love it.
I was 15 or 16 at the time, and I'm not going to say what the course was. I'm not going to say what the tournament was because it would be pretty easy to figure out who I DQ'd. But yeah, I was playing this hole, and there are white stakes there. There are, and it said on the rule sheet that there's internal bounds on this hole, and it's only for this hole. And I look over, and I'm like, this effing kid is playing this ball. I watched him hit it because I was like, oh, this kid's a cheater. I've heard he's a cheater before, and I'm like, oh, I'm just going to watch him hit it. He hits it, and I'm like, oh, he's DQ'd. I went and found an official. The official drives over to me. I told him what happened, and I was like, that kid just hit a ball that was internally out of bounds. I said he needs to be pulled off the course. He drives over to the kid, talks to him for about 20 seconds. The kid gets in the cart, puts his bag down, and he was off. I felt like a G. So, yeah.
I'm going to assume this is a local tournament. You're young, right?
Yeah, it was a junior tournament.
Wow. All right. Wow. Punching out the sandbaggers. I love it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
please, so what exactly is internal out of bounds? It's like how does it differentiate from what we standardly know?
Okay. Sorry, I pulled a Steven and I got off topic. Anyway.
You're all good.
So look, internal out of bounds is out of bounds that occurs in the golf course. Okay. So out of bounds, let's just say, I don't know. I'm trying to think of a hole that everybody would know. I can't. Not everybody. That might be hard. I'm just gonna say, look. If you have a highway to the right of your hole, and you hit it down the highway, that ball is out of bounds because the highway is not part of the course. It's off the golf course, right? Well, an internal out of bounds is where you would see white stakes or some other type of marking, maybe a line, something like that, in between holes. So for reference, there's a hole at Stonebridge Golf Club here on Long Island. The first hole, part of it runs adjacent to the 8th hole. Now, what people like to do is on the 8th hole, because it's a par 5, they like to take it down the first fairway instead because it leaves them with a shorter approach shot and to potentially get there in 2. So what the club did to combat that was they put internal out of bounds, hence white stakes, to the right of the 8th fairway.
Okay.
That internal out of bounds, though, is only internal for the 8th hole. Meaning, if let's say someone on number 1 hits it to the right of the stakes that are really for the 8th hole, their ball is actually in play. So internal out of bounds generally is for one hole. And it's to prevent golfers from essentially taking a shortcut in order to attack the hole in a different manner, if that makes sense. It's also used to potentially to keep potential hold-ups as far as pace of play go from occurring. But really, it's to prevent golfers from basically taking a shortcut, if that makes sense. That's really what it is.
So actually, I just found a prime example that we use. I didn't even realize this until now. Back in 2021, when Bryson DeChambeau was hitting 8,000 yards off the tape, the 18th at TPC Sawgrass, if you can visualize it, obviously it's that dog leg left, the water consistently right there on the left. There's a bit of a hill that sits about 120 yards off of the green, off to the left. They instituted a rule in 2021 that prevented you from taking the angle, to the left side of the hill, rather than the fairway going to the right. And because there was something that they call it the Bryson rule, essentially, that you're unable to take that angle as it's an internal out of bounds, where in years past, obviously no one would attack that area because it was basically too far out of play. You have to hit it about 360 yards to get it there. But when you were someone like Bryson back in 2021 and you were as big as he was able to actually get it there. So that's a good example of a internal OB. They considered, I believe, instituting it on that long Pete Dye hole at Bay Hill, at the swooping
number 6
R5. Yeah, number 6. They thought about integrating it, but they couldn't figure out a placement to the left side of the green that they could call it out from, so they never actually did. But yes, no, those are two examples of a internal OB that could have been leveraged. But your example was essentially perfect. So thank you.
Thank you. I am perfect.
But yeah, so the golf course overall, and I think the biggest thing that you pointed out was the idea that you cannot expect anything. And let's be honest, weather reporters typically tend to get it wrong. It's all predictions at the end of the day.
They suck at their job. It's the only job that you can suck at and not get fired.
So therefore, I feel like even me saying it's going to be 64 and 15-degree weather, 50 mile per hour winds. Well, I think it was last week they had projected like 15, 20. It was like 26 miles an hour on moving day on Saturday. But at the very least, what I can say right now is expecting the rain on Saturday and Sunday. it might very well be a tournament where your performance going into the weekend might very well predicate a winner. Very rarely do we ever see a wire-to-wire winner in a major. I can't tell you the last time we ever have, probably Tiger Woods. But at the very least for the Open, each of the last 6 years, the leader going into the weekend never actually wins the tournament. There's a good chance that because of the rain and the conditions, assuming the leader can actually maintain a decent round and not go super high, you very well could see somebody going into the weekend with a lead and possibly holding it because of the opportunity that the weather's going to just be absolute crap. Do you think that that's at all a possibility, or am I just kind of speaking out of my ass at this point?
Look, everything's going to be. There are a lot of things that are unpredictable when it comes to the Open Championship. The weather, which then affects how the course can play. We've had some shocking winners from the Open. I mean, Darren Clarke, I believe he won in 2012. I don't think anybody was expecting Darren Clarke to win unless they're like some serious gambler.
A Swami?
What's that?
A Swami?
Yeah, I guess that's what they're called. But you have to expect the unexpected. It's the type of event. It's the most difficult event, in my opinion, to have the lead in for the entire tournament.
Yeah.
Because the conditions are so unpredictable. I've had times in the United States where I've hit what I thought were good shots, and then a gust hits the ball basically, and it just goes offline. And I miss the green, or I miss the fairway, or whatever. Imagine what that's like playing over there in the UK. Can you imagine? That's insane. So I do think it's going to be very difficult for someone to basically lead from start to finish. It's really difficult to keep your lead in this style of golf for 2 days, let alone 4. So I do think you're going to see a lot of fluctuation early in the tournament. And then once guys kind of start to distance themselves as the tournament matures and progresses, it'll be down to like a select few guys, essentially. Yeah. Or someone could just, or someone could just pull a Louis Oosthuizen like in 2010 and win by 8 shots, like he did at St. Andrews. So who knows? But I think the first option of guys eventually getting weeded out and having it come down to a couple guys coming down the stretch, I feel like that's more of what we're expecting. We should be expecting.
Yeah. And I think what's interesting too is that this event, like you had said, I believe it has typically, I think, aside from like, we want to talk about like way back in the 1900s, I believe the largest margin of victory was, I think, Tiger in 2000. I think it won by like 8 strokes. I could be wrong.
Sounds
I think it was 8 strokes. Aside from that, we haven't seen a winner at the Open win by more than 2 strokes in, I believe, a decade, possibly even more. I know Rory led by 6 in 2014. I don't think he won by 6. I think he won by less than that.
No, he won by 4.
Yeah. Okay. So like 4 is our baseline here. I don't see anybody winning by any more than 2. Even Cameron Smith was keeping it close and in much more practical conditions and against Cameron Young. So I would say that overall we're going to see a very compacted event. A couple of things to point out too as we segue into the guys who kind of fit the mode this week in the model. We're looking at 5 things that I think are pretty paramount. A, it's your ability to keep the ball in the fairway. As they had said, if we are going to be seeing as wet conditions as they expect, plus the wind, low trajectory shots are really important. Keeping it in the fairway, accuracy is going to be paramount. The approach game, as you said, links golf is a second shot kind of event. It's all about placement and proximity. The greens are as advertised and what you expect from most Opens. But I think the biggest thing comes down to 3 things. It's your accuracy off the tee, your proximity to the hole, and really, in this instance, it's your short ski and scrambling. One of the things that I saw that was really interesting was Victor Hovland was taking practice shots from behind and within the pot bunkers. And his caddy, this is caddy or swing coach, was Joe Mayo, and pointed out that you have to basically keep your trajectory so low on these bunkers, whether or not you're in it or you're out of it, to avoid, because the ball isn't really planting itself as well as they would have hoped. It really is rolling out. So to keep your trajectory low and basically try and skirt it so that it has enough backspin to just stop still is really what you're looking at coming out of the rough or the bunkers. And he had even said, like, you want to be as close to the edge of that bunker in the pot as you can be, because if you hit it any higher, you're going to be sailing it. So I think those things are really important to look at this week in particular, and seeing guys that are close to the greens. With that being said, looking at the guys in the top tier, in the middle, the long shots, who are some of the names that stand out to you immediately who have a realistic chance without, of course, any of those unprecedented condition changes that have a chance to win this week at Royal League?
It's interesting. I'm looking at I know, no free ads, but according to CBS, Rory McIlroy and Scotty Scheffler, they have the two best odds of winning. I do think, though, it's going to be like a lot of the same of what you'd expect in any major championship. I think you'll see guys who kind of out of nowhere will have a top 10 or something, or will kind of contend for a little while. I do think someone like Colin Morikawa is an interesting person to keep an eye on. Xander Schauffele, another interesting guy to keep an eye on. Guys who know how to control their ball flight. Someone like Matt Fitzpatrick as well. I think he's an interesting play. Yeah, I'll say those three guys for now. But anybody who really knows how to control the trajectory and curve of a golf ball, they're going to have a good week this week.
Looking at the top half of players, I want to ask this: who has better odds in terms of their chances here? Jon Rahm, Rory McIlroy, or Scotty Scheffler? First look.
I know I'm like a Scotty. I know I'm like a Scotty super supporter. I really don't like his odds this week at all. His swing in windy conditions scares the crap out of me, because I just feel like it'll go offline or something, especially off the tee. Jon Rahm. He plays well in all conditions.
We're not buying into Rory's win.
I literally just explained that ad nauseum for about 10 minutes. If you weren't listening before.
Good. I appreciate it.
Yep.
Let's push on. Prop bet time brought to you by our friends over at Wasted Wedge. I have a couple that are really interesting. I want to get your take on some.
Okay.
Nationality props. There's a bunch on the sports books that you can go after. You can chase. Top American is one that I think is interesting. Top continental European, as opposed to top like Scottish/Englishman or Irishman for that matter, that you can play. And then aside from that, you could also play. Will the winner be a worldwide winner or somebody from the British Isles? What are some of those bets that you'd be interested in, and anything that stands out to you this week, even matchup wise?
I'm just interested to see what the winner's going to drink out of the claret jug. That's really what I'm into.
That actually is a prop too. You could opt for beer, liquor, or neither.
Like a seltzer, maybe. I don't know. I don't know. That's like, I feel like that's so like not UK to have like to drink a seltzer out of like a high noon, to drink a high noon out of the claret jug. I feel like that's just like so not.
Harry Vardon would be shaking in his grave right now.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, because it's like that's like so American, like I feel like people would be like if I did that, like, yeah, I would drink. I just pour a bunch of like grapefruit high noons in there and just chug. And I feel like people from the UK would be like, oh my God, get a load of this.
Who's the golfer that if they win would pour like a high noon is classier, but like a White Claw into the jug?
You have to go with someone who you can't go with anybody with a dad bod, because those are the guys that love liquor and love beer.
I got to be honest with you, and this would be this is a terrible take, being that he's British. Matt Fitzpatrick seems like the kind of guy to be drinking a White Claw.
See, I don't think he is. I think he's just like a little bit of liquor and just a big fat ice cube, and that's him.
I think he's more of a beer guy.
Like okay, so you want me to pick someone who would do like a high noon or like a White Claw?
I like trying to think of like someone like top 50.
Cameron Young, maybe.
No,
he's from the Northeast. I feel like it's such a Northeast kind of thing.
Cameron Young definitely drinks like hardcore straight Scotch.
Oh man,
he doesn't fuck around.
What about Colin? I feel like Colin Morikawa, Xander Schauffele, maybe. I don't know.
Very California of him. I think.
Yeah, I feel like a Californian. I don't think a Californian's generally their first pick would be hard liquor.
You know who's definitely pouring a high noon in there? Who also forgot he's a lefty? Brian Harmon. Screams high noon.
No, he's from Georgia. There's no way.
You'd be surprised.
I feel like we're just completely stereotyping about states now.
We are. I'll tell you one thing, and I hate to make an alcoholism joke, but if Chris Kirk wins, there will be no booze in that jug.
Why would you say that? Oh my God, we're not going to get canceled.
If we get canceled.
Anyway, actually, you want to know something? Wesley Bryan, he's not playing this week. I wish he was. He's playing at the Barracuda. He actually doesn't like beer.
Really?
He goes, I'm not a big beer guy, so he said on like on their YouTube channel, the one that he and his brother do.
Yeah.
He said he's like, I'm not really into beer, so I'm just gonna have a high noon or whatever it was. It was like a seltzer.
If you won the platter jug, what are you pouring into it?
That's tough, man. That's tough. To be honest, I'm going some type of beer. I'm probably gonna do like a Blue Moon. You know, I could just like squeeze some like oranges in there. Some type of like a beer where I can squeeze it like a fruit in, like a Corona or a Blue Moon. Yeah, nothing like, I don't know, like not like a Bud Light or anything. That's like cheap. That's like too collegey. Like I'd go like. Honestly, I would probably go with Blue Moon. I'd say Blue Moon, because I feel like Blue Moon with some orange. Ooh, that's the best. The worst, actually, I've been thinking about this for the past 10 minutes. When I won the Michael Hebron, I got that big fat trophy that I had to eventually give back. I never drank out of it, and I feel like such a loser for not doing that. I feel like such a loser.
Honestly, if I won, I mean, I'm too Irish. I feel like to not pour a Guinness into it.
Okay. Guinness isn't really my thing, but I understand.
Or like I don't know. Like I feel like and like look, if I was to be on PGA Tour, I wouldn't say Steve McIlroy from Ireland. I'd be an American, but I feel like Guinness would be appropriate, being that like you're in the British Isles and I am Irish. Maybe you go with like, if you're gonna go American beer, you have to go like something like classy and like something that isn't like cheap and shitty. Like
Corona's fine. Blue Moon's good.
No, I would avoid at all costs any domestic beer. No Corona, no Blue Moon, no Bud Light, Heineken.
Stella.
No. I would do. Honestly, I'd probably do something like closer to home. That's like a bit more like a Montauk, or like something like that. I'm like, yeah, I'm from here. Because like, you know us from Long Island. Like everyone from Long Island loves saying they're from Long Island. Yeah, Strong Island. What's like? Let's be honest.
You're actually right. In my practice for the State Open, There was this guy. I'm not going to say what club he was affiliated with because I don't want him to get fired. But I played with this guy. Played with 3 guys. But there was this one guy at the halfway house at Bethpage Black. He ended up buying beer, and he ended up taking the 9th hole off because he wasn't playing well in the practice round. And he was just he had like 2 or 3 Montauk's in his bag.
I love that.
I thought it was the funniest thing. He was not having fun, so he had to take a load off. It was hilarious.
Yeah, like a Montauk. I think fits like. I don't know. We're the most like in your face people when it comes to like where we're from. Like I remember like during Hurricane Sandy, like the whole thing about like Strong Island and like the whole thing about how like Long Island's better than everyone else because we can like get through disaster. Like
we are better than everybody else.
We are pretty damn good. Anyways, back to the props that actually matter.
About that.
So I'm taking beer out of the platter jug. I want to take top American player. It sounds like a pretty obvious answer, but I'm pushing. I'm going to take Colin Morikawa as top American. Top continental European is a good one. I like Victor Hovland this week. And then if we run, I like this one. The over-under 4 eagles in round 1. I'm going to take the over up on that. I think.
Yeah. Hammer. You have 3 par 5s, right?
Yeah.
That's enough. Hammer the over.
There's some pretty damn gettable holes, and even with the wind, I feel like guys can attack it pretty well. So I'll roll with that. We're an hour 15 in. We have 15 to go. It's beer money on the other side, right here. Don't point my folks. Benny boy, we are riding an absolute heater so far on beer money over the last few weeks. It's time for some beer money, brought to you by our friends over at Kenwood Beer. Philadelphia's top light beer with the exact same amount of calories as your typical Bud Light, but it tastes so much better. So get rid of the Bud Light. Go on KenwoodBeer.com. Find the candy tracker. You can find your candies at your local Whole Foods and other locations. Again, KenwoodBeer.com. Go find them. Must be 21 or older to consume. And 21 or older to be, actually 18 or over in some states, at least here in New York, to be betting on what we're going to be taking this week at the Open Championship. We begin with making and missing the cut. Who are your plays this week at the 151st Open at Hoy Lake?
All right. So for making and missing the cut. All right. I'm going to go with Patrick Reed missing the cut. His driver, in my opinion, is his Achilles heel. And in wet and windy conditions where on a softer course he might be forced to hit driver, I think it might come back to bite him in the butt. I'm going to go Patrick Reed to miss the cut. And then to make the cut, I am going with – oh, man, this is hard. I'm going to go with Zach Johnson to make the cut. I know I always pick someone affiliated with Bender, it seems like the past 3 weeks or whatever it's been. Zach Johnson is a guy who knows how to control his golf ball. He's a very good ball striker, very consistent. Consistency is key in all conditions, especially adverse conditions. I have Zach Johnson making the cut like a champ. He's also an Open champion as well. I believe it's St. Andrews, actually. So
I believe you're right, it was.
Congratulations to him. I know it's probably 8 years too late, but congratulations to you, Zach. I got to actually hold the Claret Chug, by the way. So,
really?
Yep, because we worked with the same swim coach, and it was at Mike's Academy. I have a picture.
That's awesome.
Yep, I know you're jealous. Anyway,
do you happen to have a photo?
Yeah, I do, but I was so young. I'll send it to you. Just don't send it to the masses.
I will not do that. Don't you worry. All right. So my play is to make and miss the cut. I'm gonna ride the hot hand of guys to miss the cut. I think I've taken it probably like 4 times as of late. I'm taking Justin Thomas to miss the cut.
That was so funny how you said I'm gonna ride the hot hand for guys to miss the cut.
Justin Thomas
No,
has look. He's just so inconsistent. I don't know how. Like I think I've taken him 3 times to miss the cut, and he's missed it every single time. It's I don't get it, and I hate the fact that I have to bet against this guy because I like him as a person and he's fun, and yet like it's just like I don't know, it sucks. To make the cut this week, there's a lot of really fun plays here that I can go with. Damn, I'm like really in a hole here. I wanted to make sure that this is the right pick that I'm taking this before I say anything. There is, I believe this is right. No, I'm wrong. All right, make the cut. I'm going to roll with.
Hurry up.
Here. Yeah, no, I'm sorry. Stick with me, folks. Torbjorn Olesen. That's my guy.
Why?
Absolutely no rhyme or reason, but I saw a tweet about him that I cannot remember what it was, but he had certain metrics that fit this golf course well. Torbjorn Olesen was 300 to 1 on the money line to win this week, similar to Phil. I'll take him to make and JT to miss. Complete 180 of names. Top 20, who you got?
Oh boy, top 20. I'm going to go with Sam Burns to finish top 20.
Love it. I want to take Tony Finau this week. I think the numbers are all fitting in his direction. I think he's got a really good opportunity to get some pretty good action this week. Finau's been on a pretty good bender as of late. Top 10.
Louis Oosthuizen, past Open champion, knows how to win in tough conditions, major champion. One of the most consistently good golfers I've ever really seen. As he's aged, he's just as good as he was back then. So Louis Oosthuizen, top 10.
Really crisp swinger. I like that a lot.
He does.
Top 10 might not be the hottest pick in the world, but I'm not buying the hype from this past week. I'll take Rory though for a top 10. He's really good at those backdoor top 10s in big events. Plus he's obviously from Northern Ireland, so I think it makes sense to take him when he's playing similar to what he used to play growing up. Minus 115 on the line, but I think it's an easy play. Top 5.
Top 5. I'm going to go with Dustin Johnson to finish top 5. He hasn't won an Open championship. I still think he has, because of his physical attributes and his talent, he has a couple more majors that he's going to win eventually. So I think, not this one, but I think he'll become damn close. Top 5 for DJ.
It's a good one. I like that a lot. I'm taking Colin Morikawa plus 650 for a top 5. One of my picks to win this week. I really, really like Colin here. Obviously won the Open 2 years ago, right? It was before, 2021.
Wait, did he win the Open?
Yeah.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, he won the Open in 2021, I believe, and in 22 was Cam Smith. Yeah, that makes sense. So I'll take Colin for a good ride here. The kid knows how to turn it on from the typical PGA courses to what we know for link style, and he played well this past week, so I love Colin. Before we get into our gimme, actually, no, we'll lead in gimme pick right now. Then we'll go into fun stuff.
All right, I guess now we're going gimme pick. Okay. Gimme pick, I'm going to go with Cameron Smith, top 20. Last year's defending champion. It's hard to win the same major 2 years in a row. Cam Smith, top 20.
I have a great parlay here for our gimme. He's plus 140 on the money line for a top 10. I like John Rahm. And then top 25, Shane Lowry holds the record for most consecutive top 25s in majors at 17 straight. Shane Lowry, ride that pony to the bank. I love it a lot. Before we get into the winner, let's talk long shot plays, guys who have the super long odds of 5,000 or longer. We had this event, and most majors aren't typically like you had said with Darren Clark earlier. You don't see a lot of guys with those super low odds. The last few to do so were Zach Johnson and Francisco Molinari. But who in this spot speaks to you with those super low odds?
Jesus, man. Oh, man.
When in doubt, you can always take Bobby Mack at 70.
Danny Willett, because he was a long shot one time when he won a major championship, and he's a long shot again. Danny Willett.
What's his number?
According to CBS, no free ads. He is plus 25,000.
Jesus Christ! All right, I'm gonna go a little bit shorter than that. I'll go Corey Connors at 70-1 this week. I think Corey Connors fits. I do like Bobby Mack at 75-1. And if you want to get even a little bit deeper, don't sleep on Ryan Foss. Ryan Foss has been like quietly good in majors for the last 3 years, and no one seems to know who he is because he barely plays. He plays more DP World Tour than he does the PGA Tour. So I like all three of them, but I will ride my hand with Corey Connors at 70-1. Finally, your winning pick. Who is hoisting the claret jug and pouring a White Claw?
Well, I'm going to go. It was between two guys, and I don't want to get emotional. I don't want to make an emotional pick. So I'm going to go with my head and my heart. And I'm going to go with Xander Schauffele to win. He's going to pour that White Claw, and he's going to chug it because he's the man. Beautiful swing, sweet swing, great all-around player. Had a good week this past week of the Scottish Open. Xander friggin' Schauffele is going to win. Take it to the bank. I can't wait to be right.
Was it Xander Schauffele who wasn't able to chug his beer with JT at the Ryder Cup?
I don't know. I can't chug. I can't chug, so whatever.
Really? You can't chug? I'm kind of surprised by that.
I don't think that sounds like a compliment, but okay.
No, I'm surprised that you can.
No, I can't chug. I chugged a couple times in college, and one of the times I yacked.
Really? Jeez.
I got it all in the toilet.
So my pick to win here, 22-1 odds this week. I've been waiting to take somebody to win their first major, and I really do think that this is a prime opportunity for him to do so. I mentioned to him earlier, his swing coach was chatting about how his wedge game and his approach game looks the best it's been in literally years, or actually his whole pro career to this point. He made a joke on, I think it was yesterday, they were practicing it, and he said, "Remember last year when you didn't have these kind of shots?" He goes, "Yeah, right. It seems like a eternity ago." Victor Hovland to win the Open Championship. I think the wedge game is really the story here. He hits it far. He hits it straight. His proximity this year is top 25 on tour. What's really going to come down to this is like I'm saying, is his scrambling game out of the rough, near side. His wedge game is improved by 120 spots on tour this year over the last 12 weeks, which is exceptional for somebody who about a year and a half ago had probably the worst wedge in all of golf. He looked like me out there. He's figured it out. He's managed to find his way. Like I was saying, getting it as close to the pop bunker as you can. He was getting it literal millimeters off the ground, and just actually putting on a show on the practice greens. Victor Hovland, 22-1 this week at the Open to take home the win is where I will go with that one. Ben, final thoughts.
Final thoughts. We have to get a good still shot thumbnail thing so I don't look like an idiot.
KB's been asking for it for weeks. We're finally going to get it. We're going to do it.
To get it. No, look, I mean, it was great. I thought today was a great episode. Steven made me look like a bumbling idiot. Thanks for that. I'm going to do my best to get you back eventually when you're least expecting it.
I mean, I said Tiger was driving at 360, and I was completely wrong.
Yeah, I know.
Which I should have known because I literally read that about 10 minutes prior to the show.
Well, I mean, you do also say some pretty ridiculous things sometimes. So
yeah, no.
but it was a great show. I'm looking forward to seeing some great golf, even though I'm not going to be watching it all. But yeah, no, it's going to be great. And yeah, I think, congrats to Rory last week. Congrats to the congrats to the winner this week. And let's get some major championship drama going. And you know what? I hope we get even more drama for this PGA Tour and LIV thing. Isn't it interesting how there's always more? I personally find that there's more drama around PGA Tour and LIV major championship week.
Always.
And it's the reasons are always different. And now it's because it's like we just had a moron go in front of Congress and not be able to answer basically a single question. And now his boss is finally making a return to his job after his health-related absence. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens. I think the timing, there's always something that happens with LIV right around the time of a major championship, which I think is kind of actually unfortunate because it takes away the spotlight of the actual major and the good golf that goes on. But hey, it's another story that we get to talk about. So whatever.
I think Greg Norman's probably going to make a fool of himself this week, but I'm also interested in seeing what Jay Monahan says. Final thought. If I won the Platter Jug officially, I would in fact be pouring probably Jameson into it. Whiskey. Wow. You got to go big or go home. But if it's a beer, it's probably a Montauk or a Brooklyn. Folks, enjoy the Open this week. We'll see you back next week. The home stretch of the PGA Tour season comes to a head next week as we finish major season. Wow, it seems like it's been forever. We'll have a recap show about the majors on next week's pod. But until then, that's Ben. I'm Steve. Enjoy the week, folks, at Hoy Lake.
Thanks for listening to Get in the Hole, the official golf podcast of Underground Sports Philadelphia. Catch us every week wherever you get your favorite podcasts, and be sure to like and subscribe on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Get in the Hole Pod, and follow Underground Sports Philadelphia at Underground PHI. We'll see you next time, and remember, get in the hole!